Okay, let's just jump right in. We're all taught this really neat, tidy story, right? That human civilization kicked off about 6,000 years ago. But what if that's not the beginning? What if that's just the last chapter of a book that's way, way older? A book about epic civilizations rising, falling, and then rising again, all etched into the very stones of our planet. Today, we're going to explore a pretty wild idea, that our history is not at all what we think it is.
So this is really the heart of it all. On one side, you've got the textbook version. Humanity's on this straight linear climb from being primitive hunter-gatherers to building massive cities. Simple. But the theory we're digging into today, it suggests something completely different. A cyclical history, a loop, where super advanced civilizations were around tens of thousands of years before our recorded history even gets started.
Now look, this isn't just some random guess. It's a theory that's built on clues that have been hiding in plain sight. We are about to follow a trail of evidence that puts a pretty big crack in the foundation of our official history. And this is the question you got to keep in your head through all of this. Just forget that simple arrow of progress for a minute. Instead, picture this giant wheel, turning through these incredible ages of brilliance and then total catastrophe, with us, humanity, at the center, constantly forgetting and then rediscovering just how amazing we can be. Okay, so the first piece of evidence for this lost world, and honestly it's a stunner, is what our source calls the sophisticated code. This is the idea that ancient monuments aren't just a random collection of structures, but they're actually pieces of a single, global, interconnected message.
The detective in our little historical mystery here is a researcher named Matthew LaCroix. And what he's suggesting is that scattered all across the globe, I mean from Egypt to South America, there are these recurring symbols. It's like a consistent architectural language that points not to dozens of different cultures, but to one single, incredibly ancient and worldwide civilization.
And this code, it's super specific. We're talking about really distinct architectural things, like these massive T-shapes, multi-tiered step pyramids, even the symbolic use of lions. These things pop up in places that are separated by thousands of miles and, supposedly, thousands of years. I mean, how is that even possible? Unless they all share the same origin point.
And here's the number that just shatters everything. 40,000 years. LaCroix actually traces the origin point, like the master blueprint for this global code, to a site he calls Ionis in modern-day Turkey. Now think about that. This predates Sumeria, it predates Egypt, it predates everything we call the dawn of civilization by more than 30,000 years. It's almost impossible to even wrap your head around that amount of time.
So you have to ask, why do this? Well, it wasn't just art. The whole purpose of this code was preservation. The builders, whoever they were, knew that history was a cycle. They knew that cataclysms could come and just wipe the slate clean. So they embedded their most important knowledge into solid rock, creating a message that was literally designed to survive their own extinction.
Okay, I get it. A 40,000-year-old super civilization, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction. But what's so fascinating is that this idea actually finds some surprising support in some pretty unexpected places, from ancient theology all the way to modern science. Let's start with theology of all things. There's this concept of Pre-Adamites. A scholar named Hugh Nibley argued that the Adam from the Bible wasn't the first human being, but the start of a new chapter for humanity. And that simple idea, well, it opens the door for entire civilizations to have existed on Earth long before the Genesis story ever began.
And this timeline, man, this really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? Just look at that immense gap. The code is created 40,000 years ago. Then, around 12,900 years ago, a massive global catastrophe happens, the Younger Dryas impact event, potentially wiping the slate clean. And only then, thousands of years later, does our official history kick off. It really does suggest that we are a species with amnesia.
And science is starting to ask similar questions too. You've got geologist Robert Schoch pointing to water erosion on the Sphinx, saying it has to be thousands of years older than we think. We have Göbekli Tepe, this incredibly complex temple built 12,000 years ago by people who are supposedly just hunter-gatherers. Heck, even NASA has explored something called the Silurian hypothesis, which basically asks, could an ancient industrial civilization just vanish, leaving almost no trace behind? The cracks are showing.
So, when you put all these different pieces together, the evidence starts pointing away from a straight line and more towards a circle, a repeating pattern of humanity reaching these incredible heights, then falling into darkness,
and then having to begin that slow, painful climb all over again.
And just think about what this means for the idea of progress. Linear history is all about just collecting more and more knowledge, but cyclical history is about knowledge that is gained, then lost, and then has to be restored. This pattern of apostasy, which is just a falling away from truth, and then restoration, well, it connects these ancient mysteries to some really deep theological ideas.
So, what was it? What was the ultimate truth that this ancient civilization was trying so desperately to preserve for us? It wasn't just about how to build a better pyramid. It was about who we are.
According to LaCroix's work, these incredible structures were what he calls cosmograms. They were three-dimensional maps of reality itself. They were built to mirror the structure of the universe and to remind humanity of its most fundamental nature, that we're not just physical bodies, but that we're divine sparks connected to the entire cosmos.
And their model of reality was often shown with these three levels, or three doors. You had the non-physical underworld, you had our physical world right in the middle, and then you had the divine celestial realms up above. This idea of a central pillar connecting different planes of existence, you find it in mythologies all over the planet. And it was the core message these ancient builders encoded in stone for us to find.
Man, that kind of brings us to the end here. I mean, if this theory holds even a tiny shred of truth, it means our entire understanding of ourselves is just incomplete. It suggests we're the heirs to a legacy that is so much grander and more profound than we ever knew. And it leaves us with this one last incredible question. If we've forgotten a 40,000-year-old civilization, what other secrets about our past are still out there, just waiting to be rewritten?